I feel like these scrappy projects are like the adult version of allowing yourself to color outside the lines. So, hello and welcome back to the Knitting Page channel. If you're new here, my name's Paige and I am the face behind the Knitting Page. And if I'm welcoming you back, yes, I did get a fairly significant haircut. My hair used to be down to about here and now it is about half the length and I am very much loving it. But today is not about my hair. Today is a pattern roundup video and today is 20 scrap projects that you can wear. So we all know about the scrap blankets. Beautiful. I have one myself. But I think there's a lot of fun when it comes to wearing some of these spicy little funky pieces. And we only need so many blankets in our lives. And some of my most complimented and functional pieces are some of my scrap projects that I have made. And so I wanted to put a video out for all of you in case you would also like to make some scrappy projects and use up all those scraps. Part of the vision or the idea behind this video is that in 2025, I really do not want to buy any more yarn. I have a very large yarn stash with a lot of yarn that I've bought with specific plans, and I would love to work through those plans. But as you know, if you're a fibery person, most of your projects don't use the perfect amount of yarn and you wind up with these odds and sods pieces. And sometimes it can be hard to know what to do with them. You know, you probably have a bin or a bag or a bucket or a chest full of yarn that's just leftovers. So this video is maybe 2025, you want to get a little creative, you want to get a little fun, you want to get a little silly and make yourself a scrappy project. Today, I have a whole bunch of scrap projects that you can wear. We all love a scrappy blanket, but I know myself, I am just working on one scrappy blanket and I'm using up pieces, but I kind of like wearing some fun, cool, funky little projects. And so today's video is all going to be about scrap projects that are wearable. So I have my laptop here. I will be looking down to reference because I want to make sure that I am saying the right pattern and the right designer. But I'm going to start with accessories. And so in terms of accessories, one of my favorite scrappy projects that I have made is my thneed, as my grade 8s call it. And it's this wildly chaotic little fun scarf. It's a giant tube that, you know, if you get cold and you forget a hat, it doubles as a hat. Now, I don't think this is necessarily the coolest look around, but it is very functional when you're cold and you don't have a hat, which happened to me a couple weeks ago when I was walking from the movies. And anyways, I can insert a photo here because it was kind of a goofy, silly little moment. But I've gotten so many compliments on this scarf. I was out at my little cafe / rock climbing place and I was wearing this scarf with one of my cardigans and a girl was like, "Oh my gosh, I love that. Can I actually take a picture of that for inspiration?" And so I smiled and I cheesed and she took a photo of it. And other people have been like, "Oh my gosh, I love that scarf." And they've also noticed how almost all my scarf matches all my knitwear because my scraps from my big projects are embedded into my scarf. So that was a free-handed pattern, but there are some super funky patterns that you can make. And the first one that I want to talk to you about is the Lalu scarf. This scarf, it's kind of, it depends on whatever your scrap weight is. I like a DK, so you can either do DK / worsted or fingering sport held double. And it reminds me of the sea glass sweater where you're alternating every other stitch with a different color and you're just changing colors throughout. It's super fun, it's super funky, it's knit in the round, as is my thneed, which I know we all don't necessarily love purling. If you do love purling, shout out to you, kudos. But the majority of us just love knitting in the round. And this is a pattern that is designed to be knitting in the round. The best part is it's also free. And so this scarf is double-sided, and the difference between this scarf and my scarf. Obviously, this scarf's every other stitch, so it's a little more funky. It has there's some better smooth transitions, and this scarf has a giant I-cord that is picked up and knitted along the edges for a nice cohesive finish. The Lalu scarf is designed by Sheena Stone, and I would really honestly love to make one of these. I think it's so fun, and you could definitely probably see it coming up. I want to work through a bit more of my bigger projects and then kind of have like, you know, a cohesive color story or just like a few more projects, because I've done a lot of scrappy projects recently, but the Lalu scarf is the first scrappy project I'd like to mention. The second one is the Flower Street Wrap, and this is a pattern that's designed to use like a 12 mini set, but you can honestly use whatever you want. It's a fingering weight, like giant shawl. Part of the inspiration behind this particular wrap, which is designed by SweaterFreak, is that it is the winter time, and some days it's very cold. I'm a teacher, and some rooms are different temperatures, and sometimes you just want a giant shawl to wrap it up. And this one I found was just really beautiful. You could do a cohesive story. It's huge. It looks like there's a lot of garters, so it wouldn't be too technical. I just think it's a really pretty project, so I wanted to include it. This, though, is not a free pattern. The next project is also another scarf. It kind of reminds me, it's in the linen stitch. This is a garter stitch scarf. It is incredibly long, but I made this last year, as you can see, in a nice little cohesive color story that matches this vest I have on, which, by the way, this is Olive's vest from the Knitting for Olive book. But I find that the garter stitch, it looks nice, but there's something about the linen stitch that just looks like I want to say like more machine made and less like beginner knitter. I still love a good garter project. You're going to see some of those in throughout this pattern roundup video, but a good old linen stitch scarf, it's free, it's beautiful, it's a great way to use up yarn. That if you want one of these kind of like classic scarves, I just find that the linen stitch looks a little more professional, store-bought, and kind of mimics like a store-bought scarf that you may see around. Okay, that is it for neckwear. The next project that I have that is also an accessory is the color palette socks. If you look up free socks on Ravelry, this is one of the first patterns to pop up. I think for a good reason. You know, oftentimes when you knit a pair of socks in a solid color, you get like 40-30 grams left over. You know, you could save some of them to put into a scrappy project, but if you wanted to knit another pair of socks and just keep all your socks yarns as socks, the color palette socks are a fun way to do that. I think they're super cute and darling. I really like the details between the color blocks where it looks like there's just a little bit of rib, maybe even twisted rib that just kind of gives it like almost like an eyelet look. Very cute. This pattern is also free. And so I think if you're a big sock knitter, I'm not the biggest sock knitter, these would be super cute. The next project is a project that is by Rose Knitwear, which I have the book. This is one of my like Christmas presents to myself, but you can buy the pattern. If you buy the book, you get the pattern, but also you can purchase the pattern online. And this is the Escher beanie. And I think this would be such a fun way just to use up some yarn. So there's two different colors of yarn for the Escher beanie. And I think that if you like had kind of like, I know sometimes I'll buy an extra ball of yarn when I'm knitting something worsted or DK, like a sweater that's worsted or DK, and then you wind up with like, or you only dip into the last little bit of that last ball. This would be a perfect way to use up those two almost full balls of worsted weight. Is it worsted weight? Yes, it's worsted weight. But I think it's super cute. I think it's super fun. I think you could get really creative. And the stitch pattern, also another great way to extend your skills and try something new and different. Honestly, Rose has a lot of fun projects that could use up random amounts of yarns. You're going to be seeing a couple more as I go through this pattern roundup video. Okay, the next pattern is one that I have made, and I used it as a stash buster. These are, sort of feel like a little nasty. I wear them all the time, but these are the Ultra Easy slippers. And so if you have watched Knitting Traditions, Inga from Knitting Traditions, she will talk about this Sandnes Garn double layered slipper pattern. And I was like, I really want these. They just seem so fluffy, so cozy, so warm. But Easy as Knit has the ultra easy slippers that are more or less similar. They're written in English. I can understand English. But I ended up using 3 different yarns held together because these are knit on 8mm needles. So they're super quick. They use up a lot of yarn because I held 3 different yarns held together with like a ball or 2 left of each. And I find them super great, comfy, and functional. I said I was gonna felt them. I still haven't done that yet. I wind up just wearing them all the time as is. I would potentially like to experiment with felting them in the future, but I think if you have, like for me, I did that little gray palette, but if you want to do something a little more funky, you could alternate colors. You could have these like rainbow slippers. I honestly knit 1 entire slipper in an evening, so it'd be like a 2 evening project, and you could get a whole bunch of stash out of your possession and into a functional wearable piece. And who doesn't love a pair of slippers? I also think they'd make wonderful gift knits. Okay, so moving on from accessories into the world of vests. I am a huge fan of vests. I love wearing them like I am right now as a top. I've also styled this with a shirt on underneath. I think they're great for like buffer seasons, for the winter, and there's no sleeve island, which is beautiful and wonderful. But the first vest I'm going to talk about is the Hot Scrap Vest by Dana Kikic Nemmert. So this is a pattern that is knit on 10mm needles, and you just kind of hold odds and sods and whatever together, and you get this like super fun eclectic piece. So it would knit up super quick. It would also use up a lot of yarn. I think it's super fun and funky. I'm probably going to be saying that a lot because all these scrap projects are fun and funky. I think it'd be cool to do it in like a little fun color story that's crazy, but I also think it could look really cute in like one cohesive palette. This pattern came out this year. There's not a lot of there's no projects on Ravelry. There's one singular project that you can't see, but I think it'd be really great to knit this up. So that is the first vest. The second vest is one that I've talked about time and time again. It is one that I really want to make, and it is the Olympe sweater vest by Lalu. I love the look of this vest. I am a sucker for garter when it comes to some garments. You'll see the next one is also a garter, or the next in 2. There's another garter vest. I think this vest is so beautiful. I love that it's garter mixed with a double knit button band. Like that double knit button band just pulls it together, makes it cohesive, makes it look so like, oh, you know? Again, super fun to do it all funky. My plan is to make a a kind of themed Olympe vest in very similar colors to this, using some dark blues, some light blues, some browns, some grays, some creams, putting it all together and getting a nice little vest. I also would really love to knit a crazy rainbow one at some point, but this has been like in my like mind for so long, and I just finished this vest, which belongs in the color story, and so I can add this yarn into it. And yeah, I'm feeling kind of inspired by this Olympe vest in this color. I've talked about it a lot, and I know it's not on my winter plans, but I may cast it on sooner than later to get it going, and if I really like it, I'll probably do an all over colorful one. Again, who doesn't love using up scraps, getting a super fun piece out of it? And just something about that double knit button band just makes it look so polished. The next vest I'm going to talk to you about is the Fest Vest by Ambah O'Brien. This is knit at a DK weight, and there's a few different options for it. So you can kind of do one that's just all over the place, colors interchanging in and out, or you could do one where you have a main color and you have different stripes happening throughout it. Super cute, super funky. It is also a button-up vest, which I have made the Maggie vest by Petite Knit before and absolutely love it. It has a nice V to it. It's knit on 4mm needles. There are 74 projects on Ravelry for you to get an inspiration from. Some people have done stripes. Some people have done kind of all crazy. Some people have made it without the buttons. Fun piece to use up. Again, some of those leftovers, fingering, DK, put it together, get a funky little wearable piece out of it. And like, the fun thing about vests is I feel like most people have a plain white button-up shirt that a vest looks really, really great on over top. And a little funky piece with the little wide sleeves pulls it together quite nicely. Okay, the last vest that I'm going to be talking to you about is the Lonely Leftovers vest. This is one that I have worn a lot. It's one that I knit in 2023. It's gotten a lot of wear out of it, and I didn't make it to be like funky and scrappy, but I had a couple like odd amounts of gray balls left over that I realized I could hold together to get a garment out of it. So I used Drops Air and Drops Alpaca for the gray body, and then I used a singular strand of Drops Air for the I-cord finishes. A super fun piece. Knits up super cute. There's like a nice little panel in the back that you start with, and then I do find the I-cord finishings really lovely. This is written by Wool and Beyond. Wool and Beyond also has the My Honey vest, which is an Oliver Brioche vest. This is a very similar look, a very beginner-friendly, easy, mindless knit. And again, this is one that I wear, and like every time I wear it, people are like, excuse me, I love that vest. I think part of it is that it has like the bows, which is ballet core and like a little bit trendy, but that you don't see a lot of things like that in the store, but it is just like a very nice wearable piece. I enjoy that mine is in a neutral because I tend to knit a lot of bright colors, and so this is one that's really easy just to pair with whatever and just add an extra layer of warmth. Part of me has recently debated about adding another set of ties here to have the two ties like the My Honey vest, but the pattern does only recommend for the one tie. Okay, so moving on. That was vests. I want to give a whole section to vests, and now I have sweaters and cardigans, because I think sometimes we like kind of divert to like smaller objects to use up scraps, but I do think that there can be a really nice cohesive story in a larger garment. The first one is by Summer Lee, who is like an infamous or a famous sock designer, and it's the Stash Dive Raglan. And the purpose of this sweater is to use up those little bits of scrap sock yarns in an overall larger garment. And so you hold all your scraps with a worsted weight singular color or singular color-ish in the same palette. Like if you had, for example, I don't know if I would do it with this blue, but like I do knit like a lot of colors in this color story. If you do like a lot of creams or a lot of grays, like and then you mix it with all your scraps, you get this really beautiful sweater. It is knit bottom up, which is different. I've never knit a bottom up raglan. I've only knit bottom up drop shoulder and circular yoke sweaters before. But I think that this would be a really fun way to play with color. There's a decent number of projects on Ravelry, and the one thing, I'm not usually a huge, like, I will use the project function on Ravelry, but when it comes to the scrappy projects, I think it's really cool to see like the rainbow crazy, like just using whatever, and then also seeing people that have like selectively gathered a particular color story to put into a scrap project, because maybe you're not like a crazy rainbow person and you like your neutrals or you like this, and there's a good inspiration to see how you can put a scrappy project together. Because usually I find that the like default pictures on the Ravelry or that you'll see on Instagram are more so for the like high contrast rainbow scrappy projects. But I think this sweater, like Summer Lee, I haven't actually made one of her sock patterns, but I've only heard good things about it. And I think doing a scrappy, a scrappy sweater would be super cool. In my head, I'm like it's also knit on 4.5mm needles, which to me seems like a very tight gauge. I would probably not knit it on that and maybe knit it on like 5 or 6, just because I don't want my sweater to be too stiff. This is me just thinking out loud, but I know if you are in Canada, Briggs & Little is a great Canadian yarn company that has yarn that's very affordable. If you want to get like a cream and hold it together, you could buy 5, 6, 7 balls of it for under $50, because the balls typically retail for about $6, $7 a ball, I want to say. But that is the first sweater. The second sweater is a free pattern. It is the Alone Together sweater. It is a drop shoulder, and again, this project is one that's designed to be for your scraps to be held with an additional yarn. This one's kind of funky. It looks like there's almost like just little like snakes going throughout, and like it could literally be like your scrap that you cut when you like after you finish weaving in your ends that you could throw in this sweater. It could be, you know, a little leftover. You could cut things and make it smaller, but just like a good way to use up like true scraps. The one thing in the like project photos, I don't love how gapey the neckband is for like the default project photos, but as you scroll down, you see some people have done different styles of necks, and I do like it to be a little more tight and cinched in, or with like a roll neck for this sweater. But it is a free pattern, so who can complain when it's free? Okay, the next sweater is the Simple Something, and this is, you know, again, a good old raglan, and it's held using your fingering weight, leftovers held double. I think the nice thing with holding yarns held double with Scrappy projects is you can get more of that like gradient, natural, less harsh contrast and transitions, because you can keep one cohesive and then bring another one in and out, rather than in if you were to hold just a DK weight yarn, you'd have those very distinct lines throughout it. This is a pattern by ANKESTRiCK, who has knit a lot of like very popular patterns, and so it's kind of fun to see some of these like bigger designers put together these scrappy pieces. But wanted to give you an option for a basic raglan, simple to knit, great way to use up stash. Okay, the next one is the Leftovers cardigan. This cardigan, both sleeves are knit at the same time, which I think is a nice feature, so that you can have the same stripes appearing on both sides of the cardigan. I do think it's kind of fun to have like it totally all different, like it's a scrappy project, it's gonna look funky, but I do also like that the pattern is written to have both sleeves knit at the same time. The designer added some rows of garter to spice things up, but just a fun cardigan to use up scraps. It's knit on 4mm needles, so again, DK or fingering weight held double to use up some of those yarns. The next one is another cardigan. It is the Blúiri by Ailbíona McLochlainn. And this is like a jacket slash coat. She says it's inspired by the rustic rag rugs. I think it looks super funky, and again, it has Oliver garter throughout it in very distinctive stripes. I really like the finishing detail on the button bands. So from the looks of it, there is like an I-cord, but then the buttons, instead of like having a distinct button band, there's holes embedded in the sweater. So it's like almost like a pull over look. You'll see what I'm saying as I put the picture in here, but I think it looks really clean and looks kind of like a bolero jacket or like suit style jacket. She knits her sample at 3/4 length sleeve. Obviously you can knit it to a full length sleeve. I think that it is just a super fun sweater, and it's Blúiri, I just read is how it's pronounced in Gaelic. There are 36 projects. It's not a free pattern, but I think all the patterns that I'm seeing online, like they look very fun, and they look like, I'd say like it's like a very tailored piece, and then it almost looks like some of the blazers that I have, but you could knit it. And I think that, yeah, just the button band style with like the buttonholes embedded into the cardigan and it going like an overlap and not having a distinct button band where the buttons close looks very cool. I'm like, all these projects just, I don't know, there's something about a scrappy project that I really love. So the next cardigan I'm going to talk about is another rose knitwear cardigan. It is the Kaleido Cardigan. This is just so funky and so cool. It is knit at a worsted weight, it looks like. And it's I feel like it would just be really fun to knit, and you pair up different yarns together and do like stripy, like vertical stripes and horizontal stripes. It looks so cool. I have a lot of worsted weight yarn in my stash, so this is something where I'm like, oh my gosh, could I actually make this? I probably could. So it's all over stranded colorwork stripes. I'm also trying to see. Yes, so I believe that this is knit all in one, so that the button plackets are knitted at the same time as the cardigan. I've never done a piece like this, but it sounds really lovely because sometimes the button band is like the part of the cardigan that I really hate doing, and so if you do it all at once, I think it could be really cool. 2 more patterns by the king, Stephen West. The first one is the Penguono. I've never made a Penguono, but there are 2,608 projects as of right now on Ravelry for people that have knit the Penguono. It just seems so funky and cool and like a great like statement piece. I think regardless of if you knit it as a crazy color piece or if you do a cohesive color story, that just the construction and the style of it is a statement, and it would be like very hard to find a piece like this that you could purchase from the store. So it would be like, I knit this really cool sweater. There's a whole bunch of different stitches throughout it. You can go through project page after project page to see all the different ideas, but this is one again where it's any yarn you have in your stash and you just hold different yarns together depending on what yarns you're holding. So like if you were holding fingering, you'd hold more yarns together than if you were doing worsted. I've heard such positive things about the Penguono. I haven't figured out like the way that Stephen West styles it. I find it hard to see that in my own personal style, but while going through different projects, there are people that have turned it more so into a cardigan with like a traditional button band, and those are kind of the pieces that I think I could see myself wearing and doing a bit more of a button band. So I'll include this picture here. I think like a Penguono in this style where you're having the button band looks so good. And the last one is another Stephen West pattern. It is the Garter Marler cardigan. And I haven't heard of this project before, but this is one where I'd probably knit this before I knit the Penguono. And it's an all over garter stitch cardigan. You know, we love some garter. I also think garter, when you're doing scrappy projects, just looks really cool. Like depending on when you switch it, you can get, I mean, here I switched every other round, but you can get ones where it looks more stripy, or where you have the purl bumps going in and getting like a little more of a gradient style of look. The Garter Marler cardigan is knit on 4.5mm needles. I think it would be super fun just to like use up worsted weight and down yarns. I would probably, I don't know if it looks like the button band is knitted separately, and I think that it could be cool to do that in like a cohesive color, kind of like the Olympe vest. His sample is using what looks like a whole bunch of yarns marled together. But I just think with these scrappy projects, this was the last one by the way, but with these scrappy projects, you can just have so much fun with them and just really let your creative style out in like multiple ways. Obviously knitting is a creative craft. We are literally turning string into garments. But with these scrappy projects, you can also play with color and have some more of that, like, to me, it's like a childlike, like, just like, I don't know, like being in a school with like kids in kindergarten or primary and just seeing like how fun and creative they can be when you like walk by their art in the school. I feel like these scrappy projects are like the adult version of allowing yourself to color outside the lines. I want to make a little shout out. I meant to do this last day, but I got interrupted with the dogs barking. But one of my students, it's kind of been fun to see like they're very supportive of the knitting page, and for Christmas I got like a scrunchie, but I also got this super cute little headband. So I want to mention it today because even if you don't want to commit to a whole sweater or whatnot, just a little basic, this is like a basic garter stitch headband. I think it still looks super cute. That is all for now. I hope you maybe can look into your stash so that when you're feeling like oh, I don't want to buy yarn, but I have stash. What are you gonna do? You're gonna need a Scrappy project. So that's all for now. Bye!